the chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I greet everyone, and I apologize again for my inability to be there in person. It was due to administrative problem of visa, but I'm glad that the organizers are able to schedule me for virtual presentation. So I appreciate this privilege. I have been asked to talk about physiology education in Africa, looking into what it was yesterday, what it is today, and what it will be tomorrow. And listening to previous speakers, I realized that I have been invited to do a summary of what has been talked about in this conference. So the last speaker is always at the disadvantage of repeating what others might have said before. So you will pardon me if I am saying one or two things that you have heard from the previous speakers. But I believe that this talk will help us to concisely summarize what we have been talking about on physiology education, especially in the African context. As you know, I'm from the University of Rwanda, and I'm the president of the East African Society of Physiological Sciences. And if I'm right, I'm among the newly inaugurated council member of AAPS as the Secretary General of the AAPS. My talk will touch these three areas. I have divided it into three sections: yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And by yesterday, I mean to talk about what physiology looks like before 2023. And by today, I mean to talk about what we have achieved since 2023. And by tomorrow, I mean to talk about what we aim to do after 2025. So it is good for me to contextualize the meaning of yesterday, today, and tomorrow, so that you don't misinterpret it to mean the English meaning of it. The first part that is looking at Africa's physiology education as of yesterday will be the start. And I will start to talk about this by looking at the way African physiology education has been structured. As you know, the basic one is where we have bachelor's degree in physiology. In some places, it is 4 years program. In some places, it is 5 years, especially in some part of Nigeria that are running BTech, Bachelor of Technology. So, but the general norm is the 4 years program. So meaning that in some African countries, we have bachelor program in physiology. And we also have postgraduate diploma, especially in some part of the East, that are awarding postgraduate diploma, a Master of Science in Physiology, that is between 1.5 years or 2 years. Then we have a Master of Philosophy for those who did not have PhD grade during their master's program. It's like a bridging program between master's and PhD for those who have deficiency in their master's grade. Then we have the PhD degree. But what is striking, which is the most important point, is that there are many African countries that do not have any of this physiology degree. And if there is no physiology degree, it means that there is no physiology training in those countries. It is only where we have physiology training, physiology degree, that we can be having physiology training. That is different from institutions having medical programs that are training doctors, dentists, nurses, but only taking physiology as a tiny module of their program. So that is the reality in some countries. And I've given an example of what physiology education looks like yesterday. Like Rwanda, where I work, as of yesterday, Rwanda had no physiology program. That's why you can see it is zero. The Gambia had no physiology program, either at bachelor or master's or PhD. Somalia had no physiology program. Tunisia has no physiology program. Some countries have only one university with physiology program, like Zambia. You have the University of Zambia and Zimbabwe. You have the Benin. You have Tanzania, Namibia. All these have only one physiology offering university. Then we have countries like Senegal, Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso. These countries have only 2 universities offering physiology at different levels. You can find the details of the data we collected, the preliminary data we published in our recently published paper in 2025 in Advances in Physiology Education. You see a list of countries and the physiology programs they have. Even though the paper is the preliminary data that we published there, but we aim to, as at the level of AAPS very soon, have a robust data of 52 African countries to document the current status of physiology in Africa. I think that is something we are going to look into as we continue in the council. Then now, for those countries that have physiology program, the story is not excellent. Even though they have physiology program, there are a lot of problems with the physiology programs in those countries that have the program. You know, we are dividing the talks into two: countries without physiology program at all, and countries with the physiology program. And those with physiology program, they are facing a lot of problems. I have given a table to summarize the problem, to talk about the effect of the problems, and to offer suggestions on what we can do to address the problem that we have identified. One of the problems is lack of strategic funding. I have listened to Sandra Tatum from South Africa. She has mentioned one of the problem to be a problem of funding. This lack of funding is leading to a situation whereby we are having out-of-pocket funding for physiology degree programs. We have a situation whereby students who are pursuing physiology program at bachelor or postgraduate level, they are paying out of pocket. It is not the case in many professional courses like medicine, dentistry, nursing, that government is funding, government is sponsoring students in many countries. We don't have this privilege for physiology students in many African countries. So it's a lot of problem for students. And one of the ways I think we can address this is to establish advocacy to improve physiology marketing and relevance. The policyholders, the government actors, the NGOs, they are not aware of physiology relevance. They are not aware of the importance of physiology. So they don't see a reason to fund physiology education. So as society of physiology, we need to take it as a priority to market physiology and to talk about the relevance of physiology. That will help us to gather or to attract funding for physiology education. Another problem is the lack of regulatory body. What we have in Africa is NGOs, like non-governmental organizations. For instance, AAPS is an NGO registered under the law. EASPS is an NGO. Egyptian Society of Physiology is an NGO, and so on and so forth. We don't have a government regulatory agency, like a statutory agency created by the law of a country, regulating the practice of physiology. For instance, we have Medical and Dental Council for medical education and for dental education. We have Nursing Council for nursing education. We don't have these for physiology education. So it is creating a problem. It is making government not to see the relevance of physiology. And it is making the physiology education not to be properly regulated. So the NGOs, as I've mentioned, they have only been trying their best. So a solution can be to, as a society at the African level, spearheading how we can have a draft legislation that can be used to advocate for the establishment of Physiology Council in some African countries, especially in countries that are already producing a large number of physiologists like Nigeria. That is important. The third point is the lack of benchmarking of curricula. When you produce a physiologist from Nigeria and you produce another one from Kenya, what you are producing is not the same. The competency of a Nigerian physiologist and the competency of a Kenyan physiologist and the competency of a Sudanese physiologist, they are not the same. So we cannot say that we have a physiologist that have similar knowledge, capacity, skills, and so on and so forth. And we are one Africa. So it is giving a problem of giving answer to the question, who is a physiologist? So the suggestion I am putting forward is for us to have a physiology curriculum development guideline that can help us in benchmarking physiology curricula across African nations. I'm still talking about the physiology of yesterday. I will later be talking about of today and of tomorrow. Another problem is the omnibus training of physiology without specificity. That's why we have most of physiology graduates produced from different countries in the current arrangement, not being a specialist. So we have the competence to solve the problem in specific areas, lacking in the graduates. When you have a situation whereby someone is presenting with a disease condition, a trained physiologist is not able to propose solution, even though he or she has learned the mechanism of asthma, mechanism of diabetes, mechanism of hypertension. Ask him to propose a solution to the problem. He will not be able to give you that solution. That is because we did not train a physiologist with competence to do that. The curriculum we were using to train them was not a competence-based curriculum. So one of those things we can do as a solution is to develop specialized postgraduate programs that will be specialty programs that can be producing physiologists that are cardiac physiologists, respiratory physiologists, renal physiologists, aerospace physiologists, and so on and so forth. We have another problem of insufficient practical skills. We have a situation whereby many of the graduate physiologists, they cannot boast of carrying out functional tests. Tell a physiology student or graduate to run ECG, he will not be able to do so. Tell him to run spirometry, he or she will not be able to do. Tell him to run EEG, he or she will not be able to do. And this is part of what the competency of a physiologist should be. So what we can do is to ensure that physiology trainees undergo clinical placement in various labs and hospitals to acquire industry-related hands-on skills that are physiological relevant. Then another problem is the weak research output. Most of the research from physiologists in Africa, they are not novel. What we have is extract. I am not saying the work on extract is not good, but there is no science behind the extract. So when you see the publication from people using extract in Africa, they are not able to explain the mechanism behind the effect of the extracts. So it's a great weakness, and it's impacting the quality of our research. And that's why it is hard for we Africans to publish in high impact journals. They throw out our papers because of lack of novelty. What I think we can do is to create a database of African physiologists to enhance intra and inter-country collaboration among physiologists and other experts involved in to improve quality of our research. And I'm urging AAPS, even though I'm not part of the council, to partner with bodies and other organizations and see how we can have launching of endowment fund for awarding research grants to physiologists. We should not be waiting for grants from Europe. We should not be waiting for grants from US, UK. We should also have an African grant from AAPS that we can be awarding to young people or to people who are doing quality research to improve the quality of our physiology research in Africa. We should look for an homegrown solution at the African level, not only relying on IUPS, APS, PSOC every time. So, inadequate equipment for hands-on experience is another problem. And this is leading to a situation whereby physiologists are lacking technical know-how on how to use equipment for clinical measurement of physiological parameters. So we can do this after we have the database. We can have a well-coordinated mobility program where someone from Nigeria can come to Egypt, someone from Egypt can go to South Africa, someone from South Africa can come to Nigeria to use the available equipment. So we should have a kind of Africa mobility program on physiology research to share resources, to share faculty, like a kind of mentorship program for research. And this will need a big funding, and this is where we are going to need our partners from other regions to help us. We have another problem of outdated skills and limited exposure of mentors. Even the mentors mentoring the mentees, they have outdated skills. The mentors also need mentoring. So there's a need for mentoring the mentors. It's like they say, training the trainers. So the mentors also need to be mentored by more senior people. So there's a need for mentorship program to train and retrain educators to enable them upgrade and update their skill also. Because what they learned 15, 20 years ago is not the current state of physiology. Lack of industrial linkage and inputs on the training of physiology is a problem. In the medical education, you see that clinicians, like consultants, people who are cardiologists, nephrologists, and so on, they are involved in the training of a doctor. But in a situation whereby the physiology training is not having the industry participating in the training, it is impacting negatively in the quality of the physiologists we are training. So there's a need for us to have advocacy and marketing in Africa to stakeholders so that we can involve industry in the training of physiologists. Because of time, I would like to cut short this problem. You can refer back to this PowerPoint, which can be made available after the conference by the organizers. I will talk about the African physiology education as of today. That is the second section, where I want to talk about what we have done. We should not be good at seeing problems without coming up with solutions or what we have done to attack the problems. So here I'll be giving a brief account of what we have done to address some of these problems as African leader in physiological sciences. One of the key achievements, I'll be talking about 4 key achievements that we have had so far to address some of these problems. And I can say these are some of our success stories as a society, as people leading the societies of physiologists in Africa. For the first time, we have been able to establish a physiology curriculum development guideline for African universities that we call Physiological. I believe Professor Yazir have talked about this. I believe Professor Isop and even Professor D. Silverton, they have mentioned this before. And as I've said, my talk will be a summary of what they have said before. I will not be repeating. But at least we have done this to ensure that we are able to come up with what can be a development guideline for universities who want to write new curriculum of physiology, or for those who have physiology curriculum, but they want to revise what they have to make it competency-based. I think that one is something that we should be proud of that we have done for the first time, but that is not going to be the end. Secondly, we have created a mentoring program for early career physiology educators through the AAPS. Professor Susan Berman has presented this program, and at the African level, we are very glad that AAPS has made Africa to be the first place to launch the mentoring program. And a lot has been said about the mentoring program. It's an ongoing project, and I believe it will continue to be better. This we have done to ensure that we are training the trainers. We are training the physiology educators, the early career ones. That one is another way we have used, we have responded to the problems identified. And the third thing is that we are bridging the capacity of Africans to have hands-on practical skills on functional testing through workshops and conferences. In our last conference in Tanzania, we invited the AD Instruments that organized workshop on ECG, on EEG, on spirometry. A lot of physiologists that attended the conference, they benefited from this workshop. I believe we have to sustain this and ensuring that we expose our young physiologists to functional testing sessions. And lastly, we have initiated a database of African physiologists. Professor Esop has talked about this. You can find this on the website. And I believe this database will continue to do more, especially in establishing mobility program, in establishing collaboration, and so on and so forth. But the question is, why do we have this, what we call Physiological? Without going into the details of this, how we bought this curriculum have been hinted previously. It was bought and it was launched in our last conference in Tanzania. And then we have this as the committee that established the Physiological. Some of them are there seated. Professor Yazir is there, Professor Isop is there, Professor Trevor Yakudia is there, Professor Mojimini is there. You can see who again is there. Professor Fatou Bitusar is there, I believe. Professor Paul Orich, Professor D. Silverton, many of the committee members are there seated. So thanks to them again, they have the credit to have established this wonderful project. And here I was talking about the physiologists we want, but to save time, I will not run through that. We can go back to them if we have access to this slide. But as an African physiologist, we are clear-headed. We have a projection of the kind of physiologists we want in Africa. The competency we want from them, they are listed there. I'm trying to save time. And this is the structure of the curriculum. We can access it later from the PowerPoint and from the publication that we have made from this physical form. What are the progresses we have made? That is of interest to me. One of those things we have done after we have the curriculum is that we have continued, we have seen universities in Africa that have continuously been adopting physical form. We have some success stories from some universities. Very soon, we are planning to do a study and we are planning to publish a paper on the impact of physical form in physiology education in universities that have adopted it. So it's like a way of us seeing how the curriculum, the guideline we have published, positively improve the quality of physiology education. That's going to be done very soon with the team. We have presented this paper, deep physical form in different scientific fora, like in the AAPS African Mentoring Program's inaugural meeting, it was presented. In the 50th conference of the Physiology Society of Southern Africa, I presented it as a keynote speaker virtually. In the last FEPS, the Federation of European Physiological Society, and the Physiological Society in Spain, in Granada, I was there in person to present the curriculum as part of the symposium. Here we are also again in the AAPS meeting in Egypt, presenting it. And hopefully we'll be there in the IUPS meeting in Germany in 2025, September, to present it again. So we are ensuring that at every given opportunity, we are popularizing and making this African curriculum for physiology to be known globally. And then the recent landmark achievement has been hinted by Professor D. Silverton in our presentation. We have published a paper in the Advances in Physiology Education, which is a reputable journal of the American Physiological Society. This is the paper. You can access it online and read more about the African Physiology Curriculum Guideline. Here, you have seen this picture before. It was a picture of the launch of the mentoring program in Tanzania. A lot has been said about it. And you have seen this infographic of the mentees. This was shown by Dua. This is the list of mentors that we have under the program. It's a success and it's an ongoing one. And here are the pictures of the workshop that we have organized to train physiologists on ECG, EEG, spirometry, and so on. You can read our last conference report to have more information on that. That has been published also in the Advances in Physiology Education as a conference report. That is it. You can have an access to this paper and read more about it. The last part is how we want physiology, what we want to do tomorrow to improve physiology education in Africa. I have highlighted them here. Probably this will be my last slide. What we hope to focus on now, with the support of IUPS, with the support of PhysOc, with the support of American Physiological Society, with the support of DPG, with the support of the Physiological Society of Japan, and so on and so forth, for as many support we can get, our plan is to promote advocacies to aggressively market physiology to African leaders. There is no how we can improve physiology in Africa without marketing, without doing advocacy to African leaders, to stakeholders, and to the members of the public. We wish we can get a project from any of our partners that can fund marketing of physiology specifically in Africa. Because physiology is not known to African leaders, is not known to African public. We need a project that can fund marketing of physiology, whereby we can have advocacy program, we can have radio program talking about what physiology do, we can have radio program giving talk about the physiological basis of diseases and so on and so forth. The marketing is important. We can have sessions with companies, with health institutions to tell them the impact of physiology in health and disease. So we are looking forward to a project that can address this particularly. Secondly, we are looking into having a legislation. Fortunately, I'm a lawyer. It is something I can volunteer to do. I am even now trying to pursue a PhD in legislative drafting. I want to have a special expertise in drafting law. So if we have maybe a support, we can look into how we can have a legislation to draft a bill that can make physiology to have council, just the way we have medical council, we have nursing council, and so on. There are some countries that are big enough to have this council, but we need to have a bill that the physiology society in those countries can use to push their national assembly, their parliaments to have this kind of council in their country. This will help a lot to promote and strengthen physiology education in those countries. The third one is our plan, our ambition to establish an endowment fund to promote physiology research in Africa. This is long overdue. The fourth one is to see how we can establish mobility program for exchange of faculty and resources to enhance physiology research in Africa. So when we have this kind of mobility program, I can invite someone maybe from Sudan to come to Rwanda for 6 months. I can also go to South Africa. I can visit Professor Trevor. I can visit Professor Esop and use 6 months in his lab. This kind of mobility program is needed to promote research and physiology education in Africa. I think we need as much support we can get on this also. Then we need to have a market survey to document the employability of physiology graduates in Africa. I am not aware of any publicly available or maybe a published report on where physiologists can work in Africa. Where physiologists can work in US, UK may not be the same as where physiologists can work in Africa. We need to, as an African society, come up with a directory of the employability of physiologists in Africa. This will help us when we are doing lobbying, when we are doing advocacy on how to strengthen physiology. Then the last one, but not the least, there's a need for us as a society to design short courses for continued capacity building of physiologists. There are people who need to have expertise in many areas, short courses that can be certified. Like for instance, someone who has been a graduate of physiologist, can we have a short course like in ECG? Can we have a short course in EEG? Can we have a short course in renal function tests, and so on and so forth, that people can enroll for after their degrees to get more skills? That one can improve their employability in the labor market. So this is something that I think at AAPS level, we need to come up with so that the capacity building of AAPS will not only be targeted to conference only, but there will be a structure that AAPS can be using to build the capacity of young physiology within the African region. So thank you for listening. So we urge you to support us to promote physiology education in Africa. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Professor Abdullateef. That was amazing progress in the last 2 years, and we certainly look forward to seeing how much more progress we can have. We have time for questions a little bit. Anybody like to make questions or comments?
Actually, I have a comment. I'm very glad to hear the lecture of Professor Abdullateef. It was I like very much the visionary way. I like very much the passion about spreading physiology in the continent. I like his enthusiasm in generating ideas of how to execute his vision. I'm very happy that he is the Secretary General of the AAPS during the next 4 years. I'm sure he will be of great help, and under this council, I think the AAPS will move quite forward.
Frank?
Prof. Alagbonsi, we miss you here. Well,
I miss you too.
Thanks to technology, we can do it virtually, but face to face is better, much better. Thank you for a very wonderful talk. My question, I think one big gap that we have many medical doctors, we have pharmacists, we have physiotherapists, because they are professional courses and people can go and practice even if there's no job. I think a big gap across many countries in Africa is that there is no BSc program, core science, because when push comes to shove, I'm not saying it's wrong to have medical doctors. No, we need them. But I think it is more likely that you have people who have a core physiology training to remain in physiology, perhaps because there are not many job opportunities out there for them. So, but where there are medical doctors and pharmacists who are teaching physiology, maybe one day will come when they get a better offer somewhere and they will jump ship. Is that it? Yeah. So I think one big gap is that there are many countries where there's no BSc program at all. So when are we going to have that quantum number of BSc physiologists that ultimately would probably want to go for their masters and then PhD, so that you have a sound base of physiologists, on ground. Of course, the medical doctors, the pharmacists are also welcome. They are physiologists too when they go for their masters and PhD. So how, as our Secretary General, and with the vision you have, what do you think is the way forward? How we can start this in several universities across Africa?
Thank you so much, Prof. I think your question is very important and the answer is very straightforward. There are countries that are having resistance to even establish physiology program because there is no clear answer to what a physiologist will do. I remember in Rwanda, now we have master's program in physiology. It took us a lot of efforts to get the approval for MSc program in physiology. And eventually we get students from medicine, from nursing, physiotherapy, medical lab science, from other health sciences coming to do the master's program with the mind of taking up faculty position in universities or maybe doing some other stuffs. So, but at the level of bachelor, many accrediting bodies, the question they will be asking is that if we train these physiologists, what will they do when they graduate? So I think it is a challenge that some countries are having in establishing a physiology program. I remember in Tanzania, when we did our conference in Tanzania, and we're having a meeting with the Vice Chancellor. So after the meeting, the idea to see how they can write a curriculum from physical form came up. But the question will be, what will they do when they graduate? So as a society in Africa, as much as we are aware of the fact that even countries like Nigeria that have physiology as a program, there's a problem of what the graduates should do when they graduate. There's a problem of lack of employability. There's a problem of lack of integration of physiology in the health system. So from countries that have physiology program presently, the fact they are not able to provide solution to the current problem of lack of employability is not an encouragement for other countries to take up physiology as a degree program at the bachelor level. So I think it's a problem that we need to address as soon as possible to the best of our ability so that it can be a success story for other countries that may want to adopt physiology as a program. Thank you, sir.
I think we have time for one more question or comment. If anybody.
I have a follow-up comment, just
Brief.
I remember I was told a story that when Professor Tosekun, who mentored Prof. Shofola, when he proposed to start a BSc program in the then College of Medicine University of Lagos, they asked him, where are they going to work? He answered, he had a medical background, he had an MD. He asked them, he said, the way I will treat them, I will train them so well that wherever they find themselves, they would excel. And if he didn't start the BSc program in physiology, I would not be here today. So the question of where are they going to work is a valid question. But I think if we train them well, they will be so versatile that wherever they find themselves, they will be able to function well. So we shouldn't allow the fear of where are they going to work to stop us from starting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you again, Professor Abdullateef, for this. Is that a question? Somebody else? I think.
Abdullateef, I really like this energy and this plans and this vision. I think the next big hurdle could be that you need to convince universities to establish a physiology program. If I would have to convince my university, the chancellor would probably ask me, how many students can I attract? What do I earn with tuition fees? And then he would say, and then tell me, how many lecturers do you need? How many space in teaching do you need? What is the laboratory equipment? And only then he would start thinking whether his university could make a bargain and become more attractive when it establishes a physiology program. And the question is, do you see a chance that you have several of your colleagues across Africa who could make such model calculations so that you can help your colleagues going to their universities and doing that? And the other question is, you always need allies. If you want to put physiologists into medical professions, do you know whom you may push out this way? Who are the competitors, and who are the people who can support that there is a need for physiologists? And are these other societies? Have you contacted them, or is there a plan to contact them so that one is really implementing the initial effort, which is absolutely worth it to be continued and to be realized step by step in as many universities as one can find?
Thank you so much, Professor Ulrich, our emeritus professor. Thank you. To answer your question specifically, I think the major game that we need to play is, for many of the universities, by the time we approach them to have a physiology program, as we have previously noted, some of them may not even have the competency to come up with a curriculum. And I think that problem has been solved partly with the curriculum development guideline that we have. So for any university in Africa that wish to have physiology program, they will not have the problem of drafting the curriculum. They have the resource documents ready, and if invited, we are willing to serve as resource persons to help them come up with curriculum. But in terms of the politics of the university, as you have mentioned, particularly in private universities, it is easier to lobby private universities somehow now to establish a physiology program than government university. For them, they are interested in getting students. They're not looking at what the students will do. They're not looking at some other factors. So maybe to see how we can work with other bodies, there is a need for us to have a strong tie with accreditation bodies like, for instance, the Ministry of Education, the Higher Education Council, the National Council for Science and Education, and so on, the institutions accrediting programs in every country. Maybe by the time we have this kind of strong tie with them, and that has a lot to do with the marketing of physiology I was talking about, we will be able to get buy-in of governments to have physiology program in many countries. But the problem is not to have the program in a country. The problem actually is how to ensure physiologists produced from the program are relevant. We are not happy to be producing physiologists that will just be adding to the unemployment in the labor market. We are not happy to be producing physiologists that will not be employable. So employability of the physiologists and creating labor market for them that will ensure that when they finish the degree, they will get a job to be doing. For instance, I remember myself, when I finished physiology, I started working in insurance company. I was selling insurance policy. I was working in the bank, selling policy for the bank. You can see there's a disconnect between physiology and insurance in the bank. So this is the story we don't want to continue again. And that's exactly why we are seeing how to ensure that we promote marketing of physiology for government to know the relevance of physiology to health, so that physiologists produced from our programs, they will be employable, they will be relevant based on what they will take. That's exactly the challenge we are facing. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. Let us all thank Professor Abdullateef. Fascinating to see where this goes in the next 4 years. And now I'm going to turn it over to Prof. Yasser.
Okay, at the end, we thank you very much, Prof. Abdullateef, for being with us. Actually, listening to you made us to feel much more sorry that you were not with us throughout the whole conference, because we are sure we missed your enthusiasm, your contribution, and so on. But I promise you will come again, inshallah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank every one of you who came to this conference. Actually, we appreciate very much that people took the trouble to travel here. But I think we have listened to very excellent talks. We have made very nice discussions. We learned a lot from each other. I personally learned from each one of you, each one of the activities, and we hope that we stay in contact always, as we have been before the conference. I mean, exchanging emails and so on. We need to keep that on. What is left now is we have one trophy left, and I'm sure you know which one, whose one is that. Can anybody predict?